This is my video presentation on how we can improve public education in the United States. I wanted to start the conversation off by acknowledging a few points. It's my understanding that the reason the school year is structured the way it is revolves around the fact that kids were required to provide extra labor in the summertime. 2, air conditioning was a luxury, and most districts couldn't afford to provide air conditioning in all their public schools. So the kids were given the summer off because it was too hot for them to be there. 3, the American life expectancy has increased considerably since the advent of public education. It's all based around an antiquated way of life, so we really should just blow it all up and start from scratch. And here's some ideas how we could do it. I'm just going to acknowledge right off the bat that I'm a huge Bernie Sanders supporter. And the idea of free, quote unquote, college education can be realized if we would fold in community college to our public education system. So it would be pre-K through 15. Your high school diploma wouldn't be a high school diploma. It would be a degree from a community college. And if we let the community college educators work on setting the whole school year agenda, we might get a much better result. Like currently, I believe that community colleges are really working with the labor market to help guide young adults into a career choice that is needed. So why shouldn't the community colleges be directly affecting the education of young Americans and guiding them through to that career opportunity from a much younger age than, let's say, 18 when they've already graduated from high school? So once again, pre-K through 15. So that means that children would enter school at the age of 4 and would graduate public education around the age of 20 or 21. That would have a huge impact on not only the quality of education that the kids were receiving, but also when the kids would enter the workforce. I think that that would be a very, very powerful thing. 2, 24-hour learning centers. What that means, basically, is that public schools would be open 24 hours a day and would be structured almost like a boarding school. Now, I know this is a huge change, and a lot of people are probably scratching their heads saying, what? When you think about foster homes, children that live in abusive families where their parents are alcoholics or drug addicts or sexually abusing their children, there's nowhere for those kids to go that is safe. So if public school acted as a boarding center where kids who wanted to, families who wanted to, could send their children, think about the impact that that would have on how kids could then focus in on their education. In addition, it is my belief that adolescents around the age of 12 to 16 are starting school way too early in the day. I've read and heard of a lot of reports that have said that the circadian rhythm of teenagers makes them want to stay up late and get up late. It's not that they're lazy, it's that's for some reason over the course of how many hundreds of thousands of years our species has evolved, kids at that age have been staying up late and getting up late. And so, what's the point of sending a 16-year-old who's gotten 4 hours sleep to go sit in school and sleep through half the day? It's ridiculous. So, the 24-hour learning centers would allow high school students to start the school later in the day. Now, I hear you that a problem with that is, well, who's going to teach the kids when they're getting out of school at 8 o'clock at night? Well, I would like to point out that I believe that there are a lot of teachers who perhaps are married or are dating someone who might work second or third shifts. Like they might be married to a doctor that works in the ER. They might be married to a waiter or waitress that has to work weekends. So if the kids were able to be in a safe, loving environment where the parents didn't have to worry about them and were able to carry on a normal life, and the kids could be off on Monday and Tuesday to coincide with their parents' work schedule, that would go an amazing amount to help keep the family together, which I believe is a very important, very crucial aspect of keeping America strong, is because of family values, and we want to keep families together. But what kind of family life is it when the way the economy is structured now, parents are having to work 2 or 3 jobs at odds and end hours, and their kids are at home unsupervised, don't get to see their parents because the parents are working so much, they have to work weekends. So anyway, I'm pretty emphatic that even though it's a huge change, that it would be a change for the better. Just to reiterate, it would allow teachers flexible scheduling, that if they wanted to work from 11 until 8, or they wanted to work 7 to 2 in the morning, that it would be possible if the schools were open 24 hours a day and kids could go in and learn no matter what time of the day it was, where they had a clean, safe bed. We already have gymnasiums. There are already showers and lockers. There's already a kitchen there. We just need it staffed with experienced, loving people that want to help end poverty and not to prepare kids for prison. Mobile science labs. There needs to be a lot of excitement about technology, science, and math for our young people. And I saw a video of the space shuttle being driven across country. It was actually on the road being towed, the space shuttle. And wherever the space shuttle went, there were huge crowds. Wherever it was, there were thousands of people. Oh, look, there's a space shuttle. Well, imagine if the space shuttle were towed into a public school parking lot, the bay doors thrown open, and scientists and glitter and music and kids could touch it. That would create a huge amount of excitement for kids to get involved in science. They could do experiments on it. I think that would be an amazing, amazing thing, for lack of a better word. Home economics. Now here we come to the jaw-dropping part, if you can believe it, of my list. It is my belief that if we want to end poverty, we have to break the cycle of what poor kids learn. Kids learn from their parents, and if the parents have bad spending habits, if the parents don't teach their kids how to balance a checkbook, if kids don't learn about the stock market, if kids don't learn how to wash their clothes, if kids don't learn how to comparison shopping, they're going to be slaves their whole life. Home economics, in my opinion, is one of the most important classes that should be taught every year to every student. I think that that would really change everything. And here's the biggie. When we look at what our country pays for, at the top of the list, we should be paying kids to graduate from college. Not the kids paying to graduate from college. That's stupid. Oh, I can hear my conservative friends. Well, how in the heck are we going to pay to cut a check for $20,000 to every graduate? Well, it's my understanding that when we talk about business, that business can recoup future savings in the current fiscal year. So if we would stop sending kids to prison and get them very well educated, then we wouldn't be spending that much money on prisons. So we would then take the same amount of money we're spending and we would switch it to getting kids a $20,000 check when they graduate. So this isn't free. This is recouping future savings in the current fiscal year. Now, use your imagination. So there is a kid living in a bad situation. Maybe they're being abused by their father. Maybe they're being sexually molested by their uncle. Maybe they're tired of seeing mom and dad smoke crack. Or maybe they just don't like their parents. But it's really hard to get out of that situation if you do not have a support. Now, if a kid knew that when they passed that final exam that they were going to get a check for $20,000, think of what a kid could do with that. You could get 4 or 5 kids together to pool their money and open up a small business. And they would know how to spend that money because they've been taught home economics for the last 20 years. Now, I want to point out that all of this has to work together. We can't just, in the current system, cut people a check for $20,000 when they're graduating and they can't read. If graduation included a 2-year community college program and the test was extremely hard, and perhaps kids had to stay in school till they were 24 or 25 to get that check, to pass that test, I tell you what, they sure would. They sure would. And if you really want to change the system, you don't cut a check for 20 grand just to the kid. You cut a check for 20 grand to their parents. So you can be sure that that mom, that single mom who perhaps is having an issue with her kid going to school, she would make sure that kid is going to school. And that might change the mom's life. In addition, imagine what would happen if that mom who already graduated from school before all this happened could go back to school to try to take that exam to get her own check. We're talking about teaching kids how to make profit for themselves by taking the money that we're spending on prisons, recouping future savings, and giving it to the people who are actually saving the money. We need to blow up the system. It's not working. And so, because I don't want to come to the table without ideas, this would change everything. This would pull kids out of poverty. This would teach them a better way of life. It would extend the school year to provide some pressure on the job market. It would keep kids in school longer, which would mean that the people that already have their jobs, we wouldn't have to create so many extra ones. In the pre-K, whomever becomes president, and I hope it's Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton, feel the burn. I'm sorry. Whoever the president ends up being, your Secretary of Education needs to convince you that it's a national emergency. It's like a tornado. It's wrecking our country. It's wrecking our species. The lack of hope and opportunity that public school is not providing. There have been so many studies done that have said that by the age of 6, if the kid is behind, they're lost. We have to get the vulnerable kids into school as soon as possible. And you know what? Babies are having babies. And so if a young woman gets pregnant at the age of 15, 16, 17, she's still in school. Why not let her bring her kid to school? Why not let the kids see the infant see their child parent in school learning? That would change the world. It is a national emergency, my friends. We're flushing human beings down a drain that deposits them in prison. That's not pro-life. Well, anyway, this is some ideas. I hope to talk more about this in the future. I hope that this might spark a debate on what we can do to make things better. We need a revolution. We need to change the way we are educating our citizens. So, best to you and yours. Much love from me. I hope everybody can find some peace and happiness in this life. Take care.